Hi guys, welcome to the exercise on drawing a dotted line. This is how I would approach doing something like this. So what we're going to get in the end is this is our dotted line. You can make the positions of these dots anything, so you could make it a curve if you wanted to, and I just want to draw it in this way. Okay, so the way that we do this is that I'm just going to leave that aside for a moment, the image. We have a variable here that has the positions of every dot. Okay, so this is an array of arrays, and every array here represents the x and y position of a dot. So this is the position of my first dot, 10, 10. My second dot is 20, 20. You can see here that that dot there is 10, 10. The next dot is 20, 20. And so on. So they just increment all the way to 100, 100, and that's when we start going straight. Yeah, we're just incrementing the x value, not the y. Okay, so this one here, you can see, is the first dot that goes straight, which is this one here. Okay, so this is how you would manipulate where you want your dotted line to be. Quite manual, but I think that will be fine for your needs. The next thing we're going to do is here, you'll just notice that there's a drawn variable that we've set, and that just keeps track of how many dots we're drawing on the screen each time the draw function runs. So we start it with 0 because there's no dots drawn, and then we're going to increment that, and every time we increment that, that's going to draw a number of dots. So once it gets incremented to 2, we're going to start drawing 2 dots. Yeah? Once we increment it to 3, it's going to start to draw 3 dots. So you can see that the way that you draw a dotted line in order is you increment that drawn variable. So here it's at 20, whereas when you start it's at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's just incrementing the drawn variable. In fact, I might just show you that. You can see here it's incrementing, yeah? So it's incrementing all the way to 20, and it's sticking at 20, and when I press the mouse I put it back to 0, and it'll increment all the way to 20 again. You may notice that it runs 10 times. It always is 1 for 10 frames. That's because I wanted it to animate slower, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So ignore this for a while. We're gonna turn our dots into images at some point, but I just want to go through the dots first. So that's what that is going to be. Here's our draw function. So inside our draw function, we're drawing a background every time it runs, and we're going to increment the draw. We're going to increment the drawn variable, yeah, so that we draw an extra dot on every 10th frame. Okay. I might explain the loop first before I do this, but this is what we're doing. I'm going to take this. So yeah, let's just skip that for 1 second, and we'll just go into the loop. Okay. So the way that we draw our dots is that we use a for loop. Now, a for loop is something that loops through a piece of code a certain amount of times. So at the moment, because drawn is equal to 0, this runs. This doesn't run at all. Then when drawn, it gets equal to. So if we put 3 here, this would run 3 times. So I is 0. As long as I is less than 3, we perform this piece of code. And on the end of every loop, we increment I. So this is what a loop is. So this just means that if I write 3 in here, this thing here is going to happen 3 times, the code inside. So I'm just going to save that, and you can see that this is just running 3 times. Okay? The reason, so it's drawing 3 circles, and every time it draws a circle, it uses a position from the positions array. And you remember how to access something in the positions array? So if I wanted to access this array here, I would say positions. Which one was I aiming for? I'm aiming for this one here. I'd say positions 1. And that would return me, that is going to return 20, 20 in an array. So that's going to return my positions for the second dot. Okay. If I wanted to get the first one, I'd do position 0, and that would return 10, 10. Okay, because we'd be getting that. So if I want to access just this value, which is our x value, I'm going to do positions 0, 0. So that's going to access these two numbers, this array, and then in that array we're going to access the first value, which is 10. If I wanted to access the y position, I would do positions 0, 1. So that would be 0, and the second, the 1 index, second value in that array. Okay? So that would return me, it wouldn't return me an array, it would return me 10. Yeah? So you can see that that's what we're doing down here. We're drawing an ellipse, a circle. We're getting the first x position. Now this I is 0 at the moment. So we're getting position 0, 0, which we know is 10. And we're getting position 0, 1, which we know is 10. And we're making it 10 wide and 10 high. So it's drawing a circle there. So that draws the first circle. Then this runs, which increments I. So I now is equal to 1. So when it runs now, it's going to be positions 1. So it's going to draw the second dot. Okay? And then it's going to increment again, and it's going to go to 2. So I is incremented, and I goes to 2. So it draws position, so it draws the third dot using these x and y positions. And then it increments to 3. And once it increments to 3, it hits this condition. Because 3 is not smaller than 3, it stops running the loop. So once it hits 3, it is going to stop. So let's just put that back to I, the index and index, so I and I. So we're going to draw here, we're drawing 3 circles. So just to recap, there's the 3 circles. But what we want is we want this value to be the drawn variable. Because we want to draw 1 the first time, then we want to increment drawn, and then we want to draw 2, and then we want to increment drawn, and then we want to draw 3, and then we want to increment drawn, and we want to do that all the way up to 20, so that we draw 1 dot, then we draw 2 dots, then we draw 3 dots, then we draw 4 dots, then we draw all the way to 20. So that's why we use drawn here. So if I is less than drawn, then we keep running the function. Okay, so when drawn is equal to 3, it's going to run 3 times. When drawn is equal to 4, it's going to run 4 times. There's drawn. Okay, so there you can see we're incrementing it each time, and that's drawing 3 circles, then it's clearing the whole thing, then it's drawing 4 circles, then it's clearing the whole thing, then drawing 5 circles. So the way that we increment drawn is that we say that if drawn is less than the length of our positions, so it's less than however many we want to draw, so we want to draw 20 or something like that, so we want to draw all of these, so we're going to find the length of that, which is something like 20. So if drawn is less than 20, then we'll keep incrementing it. If drawn is not less than 20, if drawn has hit 20, we just pause, we stop. Okay, so every time there's 20, it draws 20 every draw frame. Yeah, so that's what it's doing now. You can see it's still running, but the drawn value is always 20. It's drawing 20 circles every time this runs. So if the drawn is less than the length of the positions, we're going to increment it. The other thing we're going to do here is we're going to slow it down. Okay, we don't want it to run on every frame. If we did, it would be too fast to make sense. It's too, like, I don't want it to run that fast. You blink and you miss it. Okay, I want it to run slower. So the way that we're going to do that, in some of the other videos I showed a sort of roundabout way to do it. I didn't really know that we had a frame count variable provided to us by P5. So the frame count variable is what number frame we're on. So if I just get rid of this and write frame count, you can see it just keeps counting. So every time the draw function runs, you can see how many times it's running. We've run it 400 times, 500 times, 600 times. Yeah. So that's what the frame count is. So we're going to use that frame count to slow down our draw. I only want the frame to run. I only want it to run every 10 times. Yeah. So I'm going to use this operator, which is called the modulus operator. And if you've done some maths, you might have seen this. So the modulus operator returns the remainder. So if you had one, if the frame was on frame 1 and you divided it by 10, what this will return is the remainder of that operation. So it will return the remainder of the frame count divided by 10. So if the frame count is 1, for example, divided by 10 is 0.1, is 0 with the remainder of 1. So the remainder will be 1, which is not 0. Okay. We want to use this. This is a tricky, handy little way to say that every time you get to the 10th frame, so if 10 divided by 10 has no remainder, so that's all, they're going to be 0. And then 20 divided by 10 is 2 with no remainder. But every number in between has a remainder. So we're only going to run this every 10 frames. Okay. So you'll see here that we could put that to 100, and we could print out the frame count. And it's going to tell us 100, 200, 300, 400. So it's printing the frame count every 100 frames. And you can see it's also drawing at that speed. So this is a really useful thing for you guys in controlling the speed of things that you want to do. You can use it on an image sequence, you can use it on your animations. So I would encourage you to sort of get a grip of that, even if you don't need anything else in this tutorial. So let's just put it back to 10. And we're going to draw our dots every 10th frame. You can see it's counting up the frame rate there. Okay, so that's great. We're happy with that. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to show you, oh sorry, I'll just tell you what this is. The mouse pressed, I just made it that if you click on it, it reruns it. Okay, so this is just, I just reset the variable to 0. That's not something you'll probably use, I just wanted to use it for this example. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was that you can also use an image for this, because I think a few of you are trying to do this, and you're probably going to need an image. Okay, so it's exactly the same. You just use, I've got a little image called brush.png, which I've used in one of the other tutorials. There he is, little smiley guy. So we're just going to, instead of drawing a circle, we're going to draw an image. And we're just going to use the image, and exactly like the ellipse, using that exact positioning to position that image. So now when we run it, it's drawing a little image dotted line. Hooray! So I would encourage you, if you're drawing this line, to try and make it something. If you're going to use dashes, it's going to be annoying. You're going to have to rotate them to make sure it looks right. Don't use dashes, just use dots. Yeah, or just use something that, or use a star or something that doesn't matter if it is going to not be rotated the correct way. Okay, so that is how you do it. Slightly complicated if you haven't used loops before, but I've put some references in that code there for you if you need to know how to use the loops. Read a bit more on loops and read a bit more on the modulus operator. All right, great. I will leave it at that. Ask any questions in the tech support. Thanks.